Welcome back, guys, to Philomath. I wanted to take a second today to talk about a really cool thing that happened to me recently at a customer's house I was doing work at. And I was privileged enough to come across a piece of artwork from what would be called Old Berlin. And I really don't want to turn this into a World War II monologue or anything, but I did want to point out how this specific art piece, if you will, was of what would be considered or called Old Berlin. So most people understand that Berlin, Germany during World War II had went through a lot of damage. And as we can see in this image here, there's evidence of reconstruction afterwards. But I just want you to pay attention to how the image has the Freemasonic compass and square in the background with the hammer, and how Germany was reconstructed by using the means of war to cover up the old world, if you will. And I'm not saying the conflict itself didn't have other meaning to it, because of course it did. But the war itself was also used as a tool to reconstruct what would be known as Old Berlin. So this is the start of the picture itself. The customer was probably roughly around 80 years old, and she originally was from Germany. And she said that this painting, or tapestry if you would, was Berlin 200 years ago. And of course it has the overtones of the Rosicrucian Phoenix and all kinds of other esoteric overtones in the picture itself. And of course, the picture itself of Old Berlin is an entire star fort. So what we would know to be modern day Old Berlin was surrounded by an entire star fort. How this ties into the old world exactly, well, I think we can all help put the pieces to this puzzle together today, because there's a lot to this story and a lot of meaning to these images, and these aren't things that you just look at one time and fully comprehend. But it's interesting to note that the city itself looks to be some type of technology. And there's evidence of that throughout the world, not just Berlin. But it's interesting to note, and we can investigate this topic together. So, the esoteric nature of this picture has a lot to do with what would be considered to be Rosicrucian. And the Rosicrucians are known to have many secret or hidden meanings throughout their works. So the fact that these patterns are throughout these quote-unquote architectural structures is just evidence of how this would be what we would call antiquitech, or antiquity technology, meaning very old. So it goes back to further or previous videos and content that I've done and other people of how these buildings should not be called buildings. And of course, I'm looking forward to hearing anything you might notice in this. Please like, subscribe, and share. I'm trying to get my YouTube channel going a little bit more, talking about more quote-unquote old world or Tartarian content, and just keep a good vibe and channel going to get more content out here like this and talk about these kinds of things, because without knowing one's past, one is truly lost, because you have a false sense of reality. You can tell here there's a lot of phoenixes, and it looks to me like almost like alchemical creatures. Even a magic wand there in the center, and that almost looks like the shape of a heart. Crown itself looks to be definitely some type of ether antiquitech. I've talked about this before a lot on my TikTok page, but this right here is actually as well a antiquitech or ether resonator of some kind. So let's take a look real quick together at what would be modern day Berlin. And of course, a lot of this stuff has been combed over or had some type of overlay put over the building or structure itself to cover up a lot of what was. You can see the Phoenician overtones in a lot of these structures, as well as the pillars. Some authentic, some overlaid. You can also tell a lot of precious metals have been stripped more than likely from these structures, knowing that the full power of these structures cannot be utilized to their full potential without the substance being used, such as these crown resonators here with the most perfect substance, or metal, if you will. Gold is a fantastic conductor of electricity. A lot of these pillars, for instance, have also been overlaid over time with modern radio towers. And if you look at old postcards, a lot of times you can see these kinds of structures, as well as other what would be called ether resonators. Archways as well. Everything was connected. A quote-unquote free energy grid system, if you will, which ties into a lot of other topics such as meltology, for instance. This is another old world map of old Berlin as well. It's just interesting, the differences, regardless of whatever one map a person takes their truth from. I think a lot of maps, there's a lot of things you can learn from any map, really. A lot of things in maps are obviously not there anymore because things do change over time, as well as things are built over time to cover up old things. So I think it's important to never get caught up in the possibility of multiple resets, if you will. It's really sad to see a lot of these places the way they are now, because you can only imagine in their heyday how amazing and awesome they would have been to marvel at. But we can only imagine in the modern day what this stuff looked like in its heyday. You can tell here that this is much older than it actually is. There's pictures of this you can type in yourself or do your own research for yourself about that shows this building itself and many other buildings to be old even when you see the old pictures. So it's pretty incredible just to see the perfect geometric mandalas and patterns throughout these structures. A lot of these structures are churches or cathedrals were used as places or temples to more than likely heal oneself, which gets into a lot of conversations about how the holy water itself or the water itself could be purified. You see this in a lot of quote-unquote myths or legends throughout a lot of different legends and stories. A lot of dome archways. East Berlin. You notice the similarity between what would be considered Greek architecture, right? You got to ask yourself, why is Greek architecture all over the world? Because at one point, the entire world was connected on this system. And over time, man has slowly forgotten what once was. I feel like humanity is slowly getting to a point where we can have more open conversations. And hopefully, we can move forward, discover new things collectively. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. And thank you for watching Philomath.